All right, so what do we have here? This is a 2012 Lexus ES350. And I got a screaming deal on it because even though it has had a I would call this a well-maintained car, and it's in cosmetically and systemically excellent condition for having 185 or so thousand miles on it. It's got a few little scratches and dents and things. Nothing major for what it is. The drivetrain, however, met a rather ignominious end last week when it suffered a total loss of coolant on the highway in a spot where there wasn't any real good spot to get out of the way, and unfortunately it was driven until it no longer drove. But the young lady who had this car, she took good care of it. It's a little dirty, but black car, they don't look good in the shade anyway. Everything is cherry. I mean, the interior of this car is effectively like new. I mean, little cracking on the leather, but from what I can tell, everything works. Very light. Oh, I just noticed it has sunroof and all that happy stuff. I mean, she's a beautiful car. This thing deserves to be saved. It is very, very nice. I picked up at the local junk auction a 2010 ES350, which was schmucked in the front end a little bit, totaled. But it's got 140,000 miles on it, and it still runs. It's a run and drive. So my intent is to pluck the engine and trans out of this, pluck the engine and trans out of the ES that I'm going to pick up on Monday from the junk, and drop the running one in it and carry on about this poor car's life. I think she's got a lot more miles left in it. This is a great car. Absolutely very, very nice car for being 12 years old and having 180 on it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to get it off the trailer without tearing it up. Thank God for my winch. That was pleasant. Made loading it pretty easy. And we're going to start opening the hood. I had the battery tender on it because I didn't want the codes to die. I'm just kind of interested in what codes this thing threw before it expired. But they won't matter. And what we will have to do today is, as we're opening up all the beauty covers, because this thing is nuts. There's absolutely nothing to see under here. They covered everything. I'm happy all this stuff is here. So that makes me super happy. And I mean, it's, again, super clean for what it is. So I'm going to try to get this thing off the trailer, park it over there in front of the camper. I think that's where we're going to work on it. And go from there. But once we do that, I'll turn it over and you can listen. There is zero compression. Absolutely zero. So I'm thinking either it burned a bunch of valves, which I kind of doubt, or it just cooked the rings out of it at the temperatures it was at, which is really unfortunate. It's a 2GRFE 3.45 or 3.5 liter V6. Good Toyota engine. They have a few little quirks and problems with some oil leaks and things like that, and the timing gears can rattle at a certain age, but nothing catastrophically unreliable about these cars at all. Got some mismatched tires, but that's not a big deal. It may be she just put 2 on it instead of all 4. Let's check. Goodyear, yeah. So we got 2 Michelins up front, 2 Goodyears in the back, but they've all got decent tread. Thing has a full-size spare on an actual wheel. Uh-oh. I did not see the, ooh, I did not see the wheel lock key in the glove box, so maybe it's back here in the tire tools, hopefully. So that might get entertaining, but I can get a breaker and get those off. That's not a big deal. Well, it looks like it's got front sensors, it's got rear sensors, backup camera. She's got everything. This is a really pretty car. I am very, very impressed with this car. And like I said, I paid $1,300 for a whole donor car, where the junkyard engines for this thing with, 100,000 miles on them are $1,300. So, yeah, it's the front end and front and back ends are smashed on the new one, but got a whole bunch of interior pieces. I'm sure a bunch of modules I may be able to use and, going forward, keeping this bad boy running, or bad girl running. I forgot. I was told it is a she, and her name was Lexi, as one might expect. But I'm really looking forward to this little project because it's been a while since I've got to restore a car. That little Honda was the last one I did, bringing it back from the dead, and she's been really good. It still gets 50, 55 miles to the gallon, and just runs like a top. So I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a great little project. So we're going to get the trailer set up, roll her off, set her up down there, and start tackling disassembling this thing. So we'll be back in a minute. Why that open? Must have bumped the fob. 'Alright, so the check engine light is the only light that's on. 187.6. This is a Lexus. Got the old Think Tool Pro S. And you're going to see what we can see. Pin, Europe and other. I'm expecting some temperature codes. 2012. Let's see. There's a split in 2012. What's the date on this bad girl? Okay. 10/11. Okay, so this is an early 2012 model. So right here. Wait a minute. There's a split in 2011. Okay, so it is that one. Others. It does not have radar cruise. Okay. See what we get. This is a nice car. I mean, this, ooh, look at that. Ooh, soft touch. Ooh, auto dimming mirror. Sunroof. This is a, oop, fix that. This car is very, very nice. Okay. Smart scan. Let's see what we got. I'm betting there's some codes in the 16 codes in the ECM. Alrighty. That ECM was screaming for help. AC, interesting. We're gonna end up tackling the obvious stuff first, and then we'll go after whatever other little doodads might not be quite perfect when we're done. Yeah, at least it's communicating pretty quick. Oh, it's in system check mode. That's kind of neat. Sonar. That must be for parking sensors. Let's check the report. Skip. Skip. Give me the report. Okay. Coolant temperature circuit. Knock sensor 1, knock sensor 2, stall history, startability malfunction, rough idling, immobilizer, coolant temperature, knock sensor, stall history, startability, rough idling, immobilizer, knock sensor. Unhappy. Air conditioning, what's that one? Oh, solar sensor circuit. Alright, so there must be a sensor over there for the passenger side AC. That's easy enough. Adaptive front lights. No shit. Headlights, swivel motor, level motor. Okay, so the headlights don't work. The adaptive headlights don't work. That should be fairly easy to fix when we get there. And the nav system. Alright, and that's just because at some point it was unplugged. So, yeah. Yep, so coolant temperature, knock sensor, stall history, startability, rough idle, and engine immobilizer. And I'm sure those are duplicates because one is set and one is pending. So, nothing that we didn't really expect. Alright, now, just for shits and giggles, we're going to try to start it so you can hear this poor thing. The tack signal is working. But we have absolutely zero compression. I mean, it's turning over as if it has absolutely no spark plugs in it. So, as we expected, my guess is that the rings are completely cooked out of it. Because she got hot. And then the other thing I'm starting to notice is, let's see if I can get out of the way, we've got this fuzzy stuff, and you see these, I don't know if it shows, but you've got a splash pattern here of this white fuzz and some sprinkles, even over there and back here. That's coolant. So I am thinking we are going to find a leak, obviously. You can see it pretty well here on the engine cover. That is dried coolant. So we are, there is certainly evidence of a leak. And so now, got my little parts baggies. Aren't they cute? I'm going to start pulling some stuff and getting this thing going. And yeah, to hold the hood up, since these shocks are junk, I just clamped a pair of vice grips on it. And that'll hold it until I pull the hood when I change the engine. Yeah, because that's as far back as the hinges goes. This isn't like a Mercedes where the hood can flip straight up. That was a nice feature on that car. But, okay, so we're going to start pulling some beauty panels on this thing and see what we can get into. My first thing is I would really, as I'm taking it apart, like to find where the antifreeze went. So, here we go. Alright, so I'm just bagging and tagging everything, so I'll know where my screws and bolts and fasteners and stuff are when it comes time to put it back together. And here she is. This is why they put the beauty covers on it, because this is what a Camry looks like under the hood. I prefer this because it's easier to get to. I don't have to spend 5 minutes taking covers off to work on it. But oh man, even had a Lexus battery in it. Boy, this car. This was a pretty good car. But as you can see, we have evidence of the coolant all over the front of the engine. That pinky stuff. This stuff is typically a red coolant. And I believe we know where it came from. If you look in there, you can see that top of the radiator, all that crusty crap. That is dried coolant. And so what has happened here, as you can see, there's a crimp joint. And this top part of the radiator is plastic. And there's a seal in there, and that seal has failed. And so, over the course of quite some time, I would say, this thing has been seeping coolant. Most likely not even enough to put a drip on the driveway, but it has been leaking coolant for quite some time, and it just got low to the point where it said, I'm done. I also think I see a leak on the condenser up here, because that has some oil on it, and that's typically an indication that that is failing as well. So I was going to try to do this without discharging the AC, but since it looks like we've got a refrigerant leak, that's most likely a tin hole in that condenser. We'll replace that while we're in there. They're not that expensive, maybe $100. Since I want this car to be as perfect as possible when I'm done with it. As you can see though, there's not a lot of clearance. These V6s stuffed into these Camrys and ES models. Very little clearance on the front side of that engine. The original factory recommendation to change a water pump on this thing was to pull the engine. And yeah, so there's ways around that now, but we're not doing that. We're pulling the whole thing. So, I think the next part is to start pulling this stuff out of the way. Because from what I read in the service manual, this engine comes out the top. And it does kind of look like it will. Once I get that intake manifold off and this brace, it does look like the engine will come out the top. And typically you don't have to remove the radiator, but this looks to be a bolted-in cross member. And so I'm going to do that anyway, since I'm going to end up changing both of those. That'll free up even more room. Yeah, you can see that oil. That is most likely AC oil, so we'll get that swapped out too. The new car doesn't have a good front end either, because it rear-ended something. So I'll end up having to get those parts from Rock Auto or somewhere. But yeah, you can even see the seal over here. That pink junk. That's that top seal, and maybe the bottom seal. Who knows? We'll find out when we pull it. But that's what caused this this failure. Is unfortunately the radiator tanks have become unsealed to the radiator body, which is not uncommon with these plastic junk radiators. So, all right, I'm going to start moving and removing all of this stuff. I'm not going to do a full breakdown of how all the parts come off to pull this engine. If you go to the Car Care Nuts channel, he is a guy who only does Toyotas and has been doing it for, at least 25 years. That channel has some really good content on the specifics around working on these cars, so you don't need to see me do that. I'm a hack. But I'm going to try to follow the instructions as best possible and start freeing up some space. Alright, well, we're freeing up some room. Things are going along pretty smooth. I don't think I've broken anything yet. I did take this off. Got the radiator out. The wetness on the condenser appears to just be antifreeze, so I'm going to leave that in, and I am going to try to figure out if I can get that AC compressor off the engine in a reasonable manner. But, oops. Yeah, come over to the radiator. You can see she's pretty crusty. So, even parts of the bottom I think may have failed, but ooh, I need to save those rubber mounts. But yeah, the frame let go at the top, and that is what caused this problem. So it does have a tranny cooler in it, which is kind of nice. I didn't have to drain it, which was, well, handy. Saved me from making a mess under the car. But yeah, so at this point, I know I need to jack the car up and take those undercovers off because I have to disconnect the exhaust. The other thing I don't really understand is why in the hell does the engine mount have two sensor plugs on it? What does this thing do? I don't even know. But yeah, there is a fair bit of room on all sides. This thing will absolutely come out the top. Although I wish this bracket wasn't welded in, as it looks like it's going to have to do some creative stuff there. I think this bracket, I hope, unbolts. Haven't gotten to there yet. But, yeah, she's moving along. It's typical Toyota. Got a flippin' water-cooled throttle body. Or water-heated, I don't even know. That's pretty common. Oh, wow, fly-by-wire throttle. That's interesting. It's, a little cruddy. We'll clean that. If that's the one we end up using, we'll clean whatever we end up. Brake fluid's kind of dark. We'll give a good flush on that when we get her finished. Engine computer is back here. Got a pretty nice, obvious plug for that. But now I'm going to go in and start reading the manual to see if the intake's got to come off and what I have to do to take this wiring harness out with disconnecting as few remaining sensors as possible. So far I'm just storing all of the extra stuff in the trunk at this point. Yeah, fans. Variable speed fans, so they got probably a $500 doodad there to control the fan speeds. Weirdest thing I've ever seen. This bottle was actually underneath the intake. It has nothing in it. It has no... Oh, it does have a drain. Ha! I'll be damned. That's a water catcher for the intake. I guess if it's raining and it's using, it's sucking water in it, it drops out into that rather than following its way into the engine, which is kind of neat. Never seen that before. That thing sits right here. But yeah, everything else looking real clean, as I kind of expected it would. Okay, I see where else I see some other stuff I can take off. I can pop these hoses off. That's the heater core. You can pop those off. I think I'm going to pull them both. Pull them completely off the car, engine and the car itself. I hate those spring clamps. God, I hate those things. Anyway, that's where we're moving to. Well, I think everything is done on the top. The wiring harness is completely disconnected from there. It's completely disconnected from the engine computer. Power steering reservoir is going to go with the engine. We'll see what happens there. Everything else that I can see in the book is correct or good. And what I don't see is I don't see any instructions to remove the intake, so I'm not going to. We'll figure out how we're going to lift this thing when we get to that point. Now I'm going to get it set up on my quick jacks and start doing the underneath stuff, which isn't too much. Worst thing is you got to blow the half shafts out of it to disconnect those from the transmission. So the wheels have to come off, and you got to break the suspension apart to pull the half shafts out. But I think we're getting really close. Alright, well, she's up on the quick jacks. We got the under panels off. Got some schmoo on the exhaust bolts, but they look fine. But here's something I found interesting. This thing took a whack at some point. Right in this lower cross member under the radiator. I was wondering when I saw this, when I hooked up the tow strap, or the shackle to pull it onto the car, I was wondering if this was possibly where the radiator had failed, if it had gotten hit. It doesn't appear so. The radiator just failed naturally, as they do. But, man, this thing got mulched by something the size of a bowling ball, I'd say. It really bent the crap out of this. This is some of the plastic under panel that's pinched in there. For reference, that's approximately what it's supposed to look like. I mean, she took a shot. I'm going to try to straighten this out as best as I can. It's covered up under the panels, but yeah, that was a good whack. I'll probably, if the new car panels are junk, which they may be from the impact, I'll probably buy a new panel for this side just to clean it up, cover that ding up. So everything under here looks good. We're going to drain the fluid since we're here, transmission and oil, and about the only thing left really is I just unplugged the oxygen sensors. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get this air conditioner up here, compressor off. I need to take the belt off, I guess, to do that. Because if I can do that, then again I don't have to discharge the air conditioner, and I'd rather not if I don't have to. So, alright, we're moving. Well, I was thwarted for a minute, got 90% done, and I did not have a socket to pull these stupid axle nuts off. They are 30mm 12 points, and I did not have one of those. I've never, I guess, worked on a Toyota front end. So, we have that now. We're going to blow this off, then I got to figure out, I think I'm just going to pop the ball joint. The ball joints on this car are bolted in with three bolts. I'm going to pop those off. I think I got to pop the tie rods off. Then this thing should swing out, and I can break the drive shafts or the axle shafts loose from the transmission, and then figure out how to take the AC compressor off, and she is good. So it's coming along. Well, that wasn't too good. I had peened up that locking thing they indent in there really good, and that wasn't the issue. But holy crap, that thing tore up the threads on the way out. We'll have to see if that's gonna work. I mean, it's got decent threads down here, but man, kind of looks like these may have been, I don't know, these might be factory. It's hard to tell. Almost looks like they were boogered on the way in and then didn't come out. The other side came out pretty good. It's not in bad shape, but this side here, holy shit, not good. But yeah, axles are fairly cheap. Not a big deal. So now we got to finish breaking the rest of this stuff apart and see what we can do. Both axles came out perfectly. I was concerned about this one because there is a center bearing right there that is contained in that hoop thing you can see. I was concerned that that would be seized up, but it's just got a little spring clip holding it in. I popped that spring clip and she just moved. I was stunned. I'm bummed that the other threads on that other axle had chewed up. I'm going to have to see if I can find a tap to chase those, because it's in good shape. I mean, the axle, there's nothing wrong with it, other than those threads are bunged up. The nuts are available. They're cheap. But, yeah, so I guess now we're going to concentrate on the AC compressor. First thing I gotta do is figure out where the hell a belt tensioner is on this piece of thing. I have no idea. Alright. Well, everything is done except for the engine mounts. And I just read the rest of the instructions, and this does not come out the top. It does go out the bottom. Bummer. So, that's gonna be fun, because this is as high as I can lift this thing at the moment. I think I'm going to have to get real creative. But The only thing left that I have to disconnect is sway bars and the steering linkage, and she is ready to come out the bottom. So yeah, the whole subframe does come out with it. So I may end up having to swap subframes given the damage on that other one. Not a big deal. But yeah, I think I'm going to call that a day. I'm going to clean up, and then we're going to get some sleep tonight, fall back and regroup and figure out how we're going to get this thing. I mean, I can get it out. I can basically lower the car until this is on the ground effectively. But then it's how to lift the car high enough to slide that engine out, which is going to be the entertaining part, because I'm going to have to come up maybe another foot. I think I have an idea of what I'm going to do. I think we'll figure it out. But yeah, everything went pretty good. No major issues. I don't think I broke much. But I'll start cleaning these tools up and go from there. So, see you all in part 2.